Yeah, so my name's James Taylor. I'm the founder and managing director of Superstars. Started about 13, 14 years ago now. So, startup is a fond memory and been a great journey since, with lots of bumps in the road and lots of challenges, and lots of battle scars. Yeah, so Superstars is an organisation. It's a child development organisation, which is all about raising standards for children through sport and the creative arts. So we go into schools, and really the gap came in 2006 when I'd started off doing holiday courses, so getting children fit and healthy and off the PlayStations at the time before the iPads were a thing, and knew that I needed to get into schools in curriculum time so I could have a full running business. So there was a law coming in called PPA, which stands for Planning, Preparation and Assessment, which meant that all teachers by law had to have half a day a week off for planning, preparation and their marking and their assessment and things. So at the time, head teachers were pulling their hair out thinking, well, how are we going to cover the teachers while they're off doing their planning and their assessment? That's when I started going around schools, cheeky young chappie on my little 50 quid scooter, hiding the scooter around the corner with my suit on so they didn't know that I was faking it until I made it, and going around and say, look, let's see this as an opportunity, not a challenge, because for the first time we can get subject specialists into your school in curriculum time. Because prior to that you could get a rugby after school club going or something like that, but you couldn't get PE specialists or music specialists into the school in curriculum time. Because obviously the problem being that in a year's teacher training, a teacher might only have 2 hours tuition on how to teach sport or music or art or drama, whereas our people have got 3-year degrees in their passionate subjects, and it's what they kind of live for and want to teach. My experience tells me that one of the most important things in building a business is building a great team around you of great people. There is a flip side to that. If you don't do it, you can get negative, toxic people, which I can touch on. But building a team with great people that meet your cultural values is absolutely key. And I've learnt that I will always go for attitude above skill set. I can teach people skills, my team can teach people skills, but you can't teach someone a great attitude. And I think one of the biggest things that I've learned is you get so much value from developing people from within. I think one of my big mistakes, and I've made so many, and that there's no such thing as a mistake. It's only a mistake that you don't learn from is the mistake itself, I think. But I remember, one of the big, any challenge, I think, in growing a business comes with increasing headcount, because increasing headcount, that's where the complexity comes in, because people are unpredictable, right? So a lot of people think, well, the startup's a tough bit, and then the bigger the business gets, it starts getting easier then. No. The more people you get, the more problems you have. And so I think in terms of growing that from 10 to 20 to 50 to 100 to 150, I've gone along that growth curve, and I've taken a lot of advice on, learned that not all advice is good advice. One piece of advice that I bought into was that once you get to a certain stage, you need to bring in professional management, get more corporate, and so I got to about 100 people, and I started looking at that and started bringing in people with the big CVs and grey hairs and things like that, and I lost my culture, and growth started to halt. Because I had people that were coming in with lots of experience, great skill sets, but they weren't bleeding the red and yellow blood of Superstars. and and I think it probably took me about 18 months to get my culture back from there, which was a lot longer than I thought it would. And I guess it's because, once if you go against your culture, because what got us to that point was, our 3 core values, which is all about positivity, being people focused, and being aspirational. We went against that, and then you lose. I think you lose a bit of trust within the business once you go against if you go against your culture. And I learned that not all advice is good advice. Trust your gut, trust your instinct, and culture will always trump personality. So if you've got a great culture, a great identity, people that come in that don't fit that culture will stand out like a sore thumb. And actually what will happen is the team will reject them. Because if you don't get the people right, then, growing a business is hard enough. Growing a business with people in your team that are working against you, I mean, that's sleepless night stuff. And I think I always kind of think of it as, if you imagine, you've got your 6 best mates you go on holiday with or go on a night out with, and you're all on the same page. You know that you can go out, you can sit around the table, have a couple of drinks, and you'll just have a blast because you're all on the same wavelength, and you're having a great time. And then one person comes along, sits down, hey, how's it going? You're all having a great time. Oh, this is crap, this is shit, and they're one of these BMW bitching, moaning whiners, mood hoovers, and all of a sudden you've been having a great time, and you look around and everyone's like, wish this guy hadn't turned up. And one person can ruin the whole party. And within a business, it only takes one toxic person to ruin the party. And the difficult thing it's one of the biggest challenges, I think, especially as you grow headcount, because you could have a terrorist within your business, a toxic person that for one reason or another is going behind the scenes, stirring things up, but they're very difficult to spot because they're sly, they go under the radar, and by the time you spot them, there's already been a certain amount of damage done. So that's tough because, of course, finding out where the toxicity is coming from, but you just know there's something there that's not right in the vibe, in the atmosphere. People on eggshells a bit, but culture is something. Another thing that I've learned is, because I've always been massive on culture, built a great culture, but I learned that culture takes a long time to build, a lot of effort to build, but it can go in an instant if you don't consistently follow it. It's like a relationship. I think, within a relationship, both parties have got to consistently put effort into that relationship for it to remain a positive and good relationship. It's exactly the same with culture within a business. You've got to work at it every day. Both parties, whether it's the senior team, the owners, the employers, consistently, pushing that culture and likewise then reciprocal from the employees. They're working, they're pushing the culture as well. You've got to be consistent, constantly work at it, because it's amazing how fickle it can be. That one move that you do or one decision you make that goes against the grain of your culture, and all of a sudden you can lose morale and engagement. Yeah, that's. Has there been times where listening to myself hasn't been the right thing? Yeah, I guess so. I think there's been times where I've taken advice and acted upon that and it's been wrong. There's been times where I've acted on advice and it's been right. There's been times when I've not listened to my gut and it's been, wrong. There's times when I've listened to my gut and it's been wrong. more often than not, when I've listened to my gut, it's been right. And I think part of it is not getting caught up in other people's journeys and other people's shit. I think the problem, and when you're in an enclosed, quite a small business community, you can get caught up in this kind of dick measuring contest type thing. I don't know if I can say that, but how can I say that better? You can get caught up in a kind of my business is better than your business type kind of thing. Who's got the biggest turnover, who's got the biggest headcount, this kind of thing, and you're worrying about how you compare into different other businesses in the ecosystem. But you've just got to row your own boat, I think, and focus on your journey. Dream big for yourself, whatever that is for you. And then, you get a lot of pressure, I think, on entrepreneurs to be the next Facebook. But there's nothing wrong with somebody that wants to be, a lifestyle business might be the dream for them. For another person, it might be building a company with 150 people in it is the dream for them. But I think knowing what you want, knowing your why, what is your why, personally, your why. If you know that and you can stay true to that, and you stay true to your own gut, then you can kind of work out what is the advice to take and what isn't the advice to take. But I think I got a bit lost, and the business was growing so quickly, and for me personally, I left uni, I left education, I was probably pretty much unemployable because I couldn't be told what to do. So for me, it was my only option was to set up by myself, and I'd never had a job. I started a business, grew very quickly. We were growing like 110% at the start, and year on year, and every single step was new. So I didn't know what I didn't know, and so I just ran it on by the seat of my pants, pure instinct, and it worked. And then you get to a point where I've always been big on going to people that have been there and done it and learning from them. I think that's really important. But at the same time, what's worked for someone else might not work for you. And I think I think I got a little bit lost for a while, and consequently lost the culture, and that was tough, both on a professional and a personal level, because one of the hardest things I think personally in growing a business, in my experience, is that the people, particularly when you're at startup phase and you're a small team and everyone can sit around the table and have a pizza together, and you're so close, and I employed my friends, we lived together, we did everything together, and the problem is, and you don't know that at the time because you don't know what you don't know, and the people that get you there aren't necessarily going to be the people that get you there. And that happened to me, and I had very close relationships with people that it turned out were going to be only on that part of the journey with me and weren't going to be on that part of the journey. And that was hard. That was hard because, they say don't mix business and pleasure, and there's a reason for that, because it's great when everything goes well and you're all on that journey together, but the moment you're not on that journey together anymore, things can be affected in the personal side of things. And I think, and I've lost some friends along the way, because sometimes you've got to make, as the owner, as the founder, the person responsible, there's no one above you. You're the one that's got to make the tough decisions, and sometimes, in making those tough decisions, you are not the most popular person on the block, and when everything's great, it's it's a happy environment. When everything's not great and you have to make some unpopular decisions, it's your fault. You know, when everything's really good and a success, then a lot of the time it can be, and rightly so, it's what a great team effort. This is down to a great team effort, which it is. If something goes wrong, it's his fault. I've experienced that quite a lot. And so you have to have a thick skin and you have to be resilient. How do you spot and how do you make sure you've got people with a good attitude? I think, first of all, promote from within wherever possible, because you know these people, they live and breathe your culture, they know the culture, they're here for the right reasons, they've got a great attitude, you know you can develop them. So first of all, I would always promote from within. You know, I've got some great people that have come into the business as part-time holiday coaches that have, you know, worked their way up to director level, and that's really satisfying. That makes me really proud. But then in terms of bringing people in from the outside, because of course, you know, when you're growing fast, you can't satisfy the increased headcount just by promoting from within. So in terms of recruiting from outside, I think we've over the years developed a really good system for doing that. And first of all, it's understanding that even with the best recruitment system, where you've got assessment centres, all the psychiatric tests and assessments, the stats say that you're still only going to get it right 70% of the time. So even with the best recruitment system, you're still going to get it wrong one in three. But I see so many organisations and speak to mates that have gone for jobs and things like that, where it's just me and you sitting down face to face having an interview, and they make a decision. I think that's crazy, because that's all you're doing there is assessing how well someone can interview. So, you know, we go through a number of stages. First of all, we make sure that the advert is spot on, and the advert is all around your culture, so that it only attracts people that want to be part of that culture. And so you see people coming through the door at the initial stage that already understand, and because that advert has spoken to them. And then we get people in a big group environment where, you know, for us at that point, it's about us pitching the business to them and them pitching themselves to us, so that they understand everything about the opportunity and what we are as a business. And we then move through different stages. We do assessment activity centres where we sit down, and that's probably one of the most important bits. We sit with them and we get them doing the things that they would do in the day job, because they might sit there and say, oh, I'm great at selling, I can sell, you know, you get people sitting there saying, I can sell ice to the Eskimos. Why would Eskimos want ice? But then you sit them down, you say, okay, that's great. Okay, put your money where your mouth is. You sit them down and you say, there's the phone. We're going to go in that room. You're going to try and book an appointment. So you see, have they got the skill set and the nous to book an appointment? Because if they can't do that, they're not going to get through the door. And then we sit down with them and we say, right, okay, here's the product. Give them a bit of time. Pitch it to me and try and close it. So you see a lot of people that actually come across it in the first instance as not one of your, you know, big key candidates that you think are going to do really well, and then you put them in the assessment centre, you get them doing the job, and they shine. Now, if I'd have just interviewed that person, I would have lost them, because I wouldn't have put them through. And then you get people who give it the big one, and then you actually put them through the paces of the job, and they haven't got it. It was all hot air. So I think hire slowly, put them through multiple stages, because what we've found through that is, you know, people come to an interview and they put on a show, and you don't see the real person. But if you're going through, group assessment centre, face-to-face interview, a pitching session, a day of assessment centres, then that person can't put on a show for that long, and you see the real person in the end. And so we've had so many times where, you've got somebody who's looked like a big hitter and looked like they're going to be a favourite to get a role with you, and then the last couple of stages, something comes out, a skeleton comes out of the closet that you wouldn't have found, and that would have caused you a problem if you would have employed them. The behaviours that were required to get traction in the market was, I think, I was blissfully naive, blissfully ignorant. I've since learned that 9 out of 10 businesses don't get off the ground, and out of the 1 in 10 that do get off the ground, only another 1 in 10 survive. I was blissfully ignorant of that, and in my head, this was something that was absolutely going to work without question. So, I think it was just a case of getting out there and doing it. And I remember I bought this 50 quid scooter off this guy out the paper, I think, and I used to go around the schools pitching. And what I used to do is I used to drive up, I used to park my bike round the corner, I'd get my helmet off, I'd put it under the bush, walk in my suit as if I'd just stepped out of my Jaguar, and so it was just a case of passion. So I remember my first ever contract, and I walked through that door, and the first thing I was greeted with the secretary, and I said, I've come to see the head teacher. Oh, right, okay. And I walked in, and the head teacher said, I wasn't expecting you. Well, that's great, because we've had an appointment in the diary for 2 weeks. She said, well, you're here now anyway, so come and have 10 minutes. So I went in, and the first thing they said was, oh, look, I don't think this is something we're going to go for. And I was like, okay. But even at that point, I knew what I had was going to work for them. And so, I had this unfaltering belief and passion that I was going to walk out of there with a contract. And I had a no, probably 10 no's, 11th time got a yes. Walked out with a contract. And I said to them, then we became friendly and built a relationship, and I said to them 6 months later, what happened? Because, this was something you weren't going to go for. And what they told me was that the passion was so infectious for it that they thought, how is this something that we can't afford not to give this opportunity to our children. So I think, for me, when I'm looking at people starting up, I would always say, you've got to start with real passion and belief, and then you grow a business through resilience. How important is it that the founder is in charge of sales? I think in the early days, I think the founder has to drive sales. This is a really interesting question, because I think this gets lost a lot, particularly in companies where they've got investment from the early days. My belief is, whenever possible, I understand there's times when you have to get investment, but whenever possible, you bootstrap your business, because I think bootstrapping a business sets the right environment for growth, for success. You start off lean, you start off hungry. When I started, I didn't know what entrepreneur was. For me, it was just a case of I didn't consider investment. It didn't seem to be. I'm sure it was obviously a thing, but it wasn't a prerequisite that if you wanted to start a business, you go and get funding. That wasn't a thing. So, for me, I started with 1,000 quid. So I was due to go around the world. I had an IOU to go around the world and do a bit of travelling. after education, but I had this idea that I had a passion for, so I went to mum and dad because they bought it me for my 21st birthday. So I said, I've got this great idea, can I have a bit of cash instead? And eventually they caved in and gave me a few quid. So I bought some equipment, I bought a bit of marketing, insurance, and then soon realised that 1,000 quid didn't go very far. So I was, I was living on mates' sofas, working out of the university library to get going. I didn't have my own place, so I had to sell, not because I needed to appease investors, because I needed to put milk in the fridge. So it was a case of, I wasn't going to hang around and try and convince someone to pump money into my company so that I could get a little comfy monthly income in. I was going to get funding by selling stuff. I was going to get funding by getting out there, and my customers would fund the business. So in terms of sales, I think the founder has to absolutely drive that from the start, because especially when you're bootstrapping it, because who else has got more of a vested interest in making sure that you close those deals than the person that, guess what, if we don't sell, we ain't eating this week. And I think you've got to keep that. I think the last thing you let go as the founder is sales. And you only let go once you've built a fierce, predictable sales machine. Something where it's numbers driven. You know exactly how many times your team need to pick up the phone to get a deal. So, we've got that now. We know how many gatekeepers we need to speak to in order to get through to a decision maker. We know how many decision makers we have to speak to in order to get an appointment. We know how many appointments we need to go on in terms of how many appointments we need to go on to get a deal. We know what that average deal will be. So we know, in our growth targets, we literally know how many times we need to pick up the phone that year to hit that target. And it is predictable, and it will work, and time again. Obviously there'll be variances through different years with different market climates, but yeah, it becomes very predictable, data driven, as long as you've got the right people. I think being naive has been hugely valuable. Not having any corporate experience prior to starting up has meant that I hadn't picked up any bad habits. I would have also picked up some useful experience, I'm sure, but it's meant that I've done everything on instinct, and I've had to learn the hard way as well. So, by being naive, it means you make mistakes, but they've been the most rich learning experiences. And the more expensive the mistake is, the more you learn. And so I think being naive is a good thing. And also, it's a bit like the story about the bumblebee, isn't it? The bumblebee, apparently, by law of physics, isn't supposed to be able to fly, but the bumblebee doesn't know that, so it flies anyway. And I think that's what it was like for me. I had no idea that the chances of success were so slim. If I'd have known that, would I have done it anyway? Probably. But it was probably quite nice not to know that. So, in my head, 110% it was going to work. I guess, for me, when I started 13, 14 years ago, entrepreneurship wasn't a thing. I didn't know. I didn't know that there was a name for what I was doing. I was just doing my thing. And it wasn't until I got put forward for a Shell Livewire Young Entrepreneur of the Year and ended up winning it. And that was the first time there was a label for what I did, entrepreneur. I was like, wow, there's actually a name for this madness. And at the time, one of the things that really pissed me off was the amount of people that would go out their way to tell me it wouldn't work. And I had this idea, I was so enthusiastic about it, I was so passionate about it, I wanted to tell everybody. And the amount of people that said it won't work, get yourself a proper job, why would they, why would people want to go with you? And that just made me hungrier. And that just made me hungrier to prove those people wrong. But what really pissed me off is that I didn't listen to any of that. And I just, used that to drive me more. But what concerns me is for everyone that, battles through that and pushes through anyway, how many entrepreneurs are we losing that listen to those people that say they can't do it, get a real job, and all that crap? And that concerns me. So one of the things I'm really passionate about is entrepreneurs giving back to the next generation of entrepreneurs and using the knowledge and the battle scars and the mistakes they've made to feed that and educate, people that are up and coming, help them to avoid pitfalls and things like that. Because I think, yes, government have got a mandate to support entrepreneurship, corporate has, risk capital has, but there is no substitute. As an entrepreneur, there is no substitute for the advice you get from someone that has been there, done it, got the scars. And I think as a cohort, people that have been there and done it, entrepreneurs that have been through all the challenges, I think there's a responsibility there to help build up the next generation of entrepreneurs, because they're the ones that are going to build the economy tomorrow. I think one of the biggest things I've learned, and we've talked a lot about culture, but I don't think you can emphasise culture enough, is making sure your people are constantly engaged. And I've learned that the biggest factor for engagement is genuine care and concern. Does my boss or someone within the company have genuine care and concern for me? Because we can all sit down and do one-to-one appraisals and all these kind of things, but does this company care about me? Because if this company cares about me, I'm going to care back. And also, I think a big focus of mine has always been on celebrating the wins. Every opportunity, celebrate the wins. The little ones, the big ones, you celebrate them. And one of the most simple things to do as a leader is using the two words, well done. It doesn't cost anything, but it is one of the most powerful phrases in the vocabulary that you can have, because you catch people doing things good and doing things the way that you want to see things happen, and you just reinforce that time and time again. People want to know what good looks like, and so praise often, praise as much as you can, and build a resilience within the team and yourself, because I think leadership and being a business owner and entrepreneur, when everything's going well and you're riding that wave of success and you're on that crest, that's the easy bit, right? It's when the big setback hits you. It's about how many times can you get up off that canvas and keep on getting up and keep on getting up and keep on getting up, because you don't know, and I don't know, when the next challenge, when the next setback is going to be, whether it's going to be a little one, whether it's going to be a massive one. But what I do know, it's coming. It's coming, and you better be ready. And knowing that you can handle anything that comes at you, knowing that there's no challenge that you can't find a solution to, I think that is what really separates the winners and losers. For me, the biggest thing for any entrepreneur is resilience, because it can be the most rewarding, the most fun, the most fulfilling thing you will ever do, setting up and growing a business. But you better believe it's going to be the toughest thing you ever do as well. So you've got to be ready. It's not always all roses out there. You've got Dragon's Den and Apprentice and things like that show the glamorous side of business. But that ain't the reality. The reality is you've got to work harder than all your mates. You've got to work harder than all your family. You've got to get on the treadmill and you've got to keep on running and running and running, and you don't stop. And that's how you get the rewards, because if it was easy, everyone would be doing it right. I think one of our most recent big challenges has been adapting to the changing workforce. So, I've been doing this for 13, 14 years, and I've slowly seen the workforce change as we go on. The last 2 or 3 years, I've seen a big change in the workforce, and it really came to a head last year in that I've noticed that people aren't just looking for a paid job anymore. It's not enough, I don't believe anymore, just to exchange time for money. You need to give people development, you need to give people CPD, you need to give people a purpose, progression. And for me, I think, particularly in my industry, we're in an industry where there has become a staffing crisis in schools, in that you've got teachers, more and more teachers leaving the profession in the middle of the academic year. You've got more and more teachers having high levels of absence. And so for us, when we've got people going into schools that want to become those teachers, and they're seeing those behaviours, they're seeing people drop out, they're seeing people calling in sick, they're seeing that as the norm. So for us as a business, that caused us a massive operational challenge, because when you've got people calling in sick, you've got a huge, we have a cover desk, cover team just covering people that aren't there that day, and when you've got people that are leaving mid-year, it's a big problem, because schools demand consistency and children need consistency to have those outcomes. So it really caused a lot of problems. So I had to really go back to the drawing board and look at, right, how do I fix this? And what we'd noticed is that the best people coming into our business were the people that were in it because they wanted a platform to get into teaching, to get into further career progression, working with children, working within education. So we completely changed the employment model from a straight employment offer to a paid kind of earn while you learn program. So went out there, I chose some awarding bodies, became a training provider, went through all the hoops of becoming an accredited training provider so that we could offer qualifications in-house to our people that were coming on board. And what that did is, so all the adverts changed from a job to an earn while you learn program, come on board for a springboard to shoot your career forward, and our applications went from 100 a week to 250 a week. The people coming through were the people that really wanted to get into education, whereas before it was more kind of, you were more vulnerable to people that were coming in that were just looking for a part-time job to see them through for now, and they'd dip their toe in, they'd think, oh no, schools isn't for me, and they'd leave and we'd have to clear the mess up behind. So what it did, by bringing in the qualification and we're talking level 4 university level teaching diplomas, so some serious industry specific qualifications, you're getting people that are in it for the right reasons, that are there for a platform to learn, develop, that they're coming to the tutorials, they're building up portfolios, they're invested, they're in this for the right reasons, and of course, to get their qualification, they've got to stay for the whole of the year. So we lose that problem of having people leaving mid-year and having inconsistency for the children. You've got people that are, our attendance rate shot up to 99% just through this program. And so we've kind of created this model where everybody wins. You've got people that are coming into our business that are getting, they're getting qualifications that we're funding that's worth anywhere between £1 and £3 grand. So we're investing in these people, and they're coming through, they're getting the qualification, they're getting the learning and development, they're happy, they're getting a lot of value. So in turn, they're giving a lot of value to the children because they're delivering a good service. The school are happy because the children are happy. We're happy because the school are happy. My team in the management are happy because we're able to grow and develop the business, and therefore they're able to grow and develop their careers. So it's just win, 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 win all round. A great model. And so I think it's been about always being prepared to change your model, to pivot. Pivots ain't just for startups. Pivots are for big businesses as well. But it's really important, and this is where being hands-on as a founder comes in handy, being able to pivot and react quickly and being agile.